And what was happening for one of our members was they had two of their feeds from PG&E burned to the ground during this wildfire. And what it meant for them was figuring out all of a sudden how to keep the lights on within their local community. It's a rural co-op. It's about an hour north of Reno, very vast service territory. And they started utilizing generators that were in prisons, part of their service territory. They also had community scale solar that they had recently installed, and they were just maximizing their system, doing all sorts of creative things, utilizing SCADA, barely squeaked by during this period of time. And as a consequence, they're in the process of building a new 11-mile line that will connect to NV Energy's system so they can have another feed into their system, because they anticipate moving forward, there'll be more wildfires. I was actually there last week meeting with them, and there was a wildfire there last week. So this is, sort of really what's happening. And I want to talk about it more on kind of a smaller utility basis, because that is what the UAMPS membership looks like. What UAMPS is a not-for-profit electric utility company. We aggregate up the needs of our members and offer wholesale power supply options for them. This is a map of where our members are. You can see we're in 7 Western states. The majority of the members are in Utah, not-for-profit. And we let our members decide which projects they participate in, which is sort of a unique platform. So they really get to select their power supply portfolios. As far as the challenge that we're facing now, we're doubling down on planning efforts that we utilize planning to set the baseline. It's much more adaptive than I think it's ever been, because the industry is changing so much. Wildfire liability risk is a very big one. We have seen for our California and Nevada members, they're sort of at the front lines of it, but we now in Utah have started to experience that. Pacific Corp is the transmission provider. They've instituted new protocols dealing with wildfire liability risk. Our members in Utah have been experiencing that this year. We're certainly going to take the lessons learned from our California and Nevada members and bring them over into Utah, because they just have years more experience, unfortunately, dealing with that. The other thing that I'll talk about is bringing on new generation, because I do think that that's an important aspect of the resiliency challenge that we're here to talk about today. Last couple of years, we sort of took a step back and looked at everything that was going on, came up with a strategic plan. We identified the need to really come up with a comprehensive integrated resource plan for all of our members, looking at procuring utility scale projects for them in the aggregate. And out of that integrated resource plan, we have a procurement plan that will update annually, that really sets our path in investigating new resources. This is out of the IRP that we put together, and what it shows over a 20-year period, really how much new generation we need to procure for the members. And the salmon color is really the deficiency. The new change that we're seeing is, on top of just meeting traditional energy requirements for our members, there's a new emphasis on resource adequacy, which I think very much ties into resiliency, reliability. So that is really causing additional procurement needs for us. But you can see that they are significant and they are happening quickly. With that, what are we doing on actually procuring new resources? We are looking at all the available resources that are out there. Right now, we're actively investigating developing a little more than 1,000 megawatts of new capacity. That is a significant amount of new procurement work for us. Right now, we're around a 1,300, a little bit more peaking utility. But you can see from that last slide that we need to be looking at a lot of different types of technology. looking at, really everything that is out there. We were looking at new nuclear. We terminated our project back last fall. We're still seeing new nuclear as a piece of the puzzle moving forward. But we're really trying to be as creative as possible, including energy efficiency solutions, additional transmission solutions. We really feel like we need to have a very holistic approach to it. This chart comes from Lawrence Berkeley study, a really great study that looks at the interconnection queue. The interconnection queue process is, really what we have to go through in order to bring on any new utility scale generation. And this chart looks domestically at the existing capacity. And, as of 2023, you can see there's around 1,300 gigawatts of existing capacity in the US. And you can see how that changed from 972. The 972 number is going back to 2010. I think what I'd like to focus on is how challenging the queue is currently, where we have 2,600 gigawatts of capacity that's sitting in the queue. And it's also important to look at what type of resources are getting put into the queue. And I think it's a very open question whether this set of resources that are predominated by solar and batteries, is that really going to make for a resilient grid moving forward? That's a challenge. Separate challenge is actually navigating through this queue process. It takes way too long. It's around 5 years right now. And that is just really not going to work for the energy transition that we're in. Spoke a little bit already this morning about new system peaks that we've been experiencing earlier this summer. I think Brandon had July 10th. We saw it on July 11th, a new all-time system peak of 1,340 megawatts. And what this pie chart is looking at is how we serve the members' loads on that day, hour 18, so early evening time period. Pretty diverse set of resources for the members. One resource that I would point out in particular as it relates to resiliency is this MIG resource. And that's sort of a UAMPS acronym, which stands for Member Internal Generation. A lot of our members have installed sort of behind the meter small generators. And that can be a very useful asset as we look at resiliency moving forward. This trend is continuing. They want to do it for internal system reliability, as well as the fact that that utility scale interconnection process is so backlogged. So our game plan moving forward, we're very big on resource diversity, with an emphasis on finding the right balance between what we refer to as dispatchable resources as compared to intermittent or renewable resources, where you're not able to really dictate the generation profile from those resources. We need to find that right balance between the two. We're also going to be looking as it relates to, I think, wildfire liabilities is really pushing us this way to figure out how we can figure out innovative ways for our members to make sure that they remain reliable during those disruptive events. We're looking at additional interconnections, like I mentioned, with Plumas building a new 11-mile line to a different transmission provider. We're looking at looping local systems. You can think of that as microgridding, building more internal generation. Then lastly, actually getting new transmission built. That is a huge problem for us in the industry. We can't keep going doing 10, 15-year transmission projects. We're really good at planning and doing a lot of planning meetings, but I'm more in the mindset of like, let's get stuff built. So we need to break that pattern. And with that, I think that is all I have. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you all.